seconds remaining.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to the MPGL Qualifiers for Season 7. It's going to be another best of one. Going to be following First Departure, as this time they're going to be up against PMS Asterisk, who they have previously knocked down to the lower bracket in the second round, third round, something like that. Bottom line, First Departure previously beat Asterisk, but we're here again. And we'll see if Asterisk have a better chance at winning this game. Did not catch that game, so I have no idea what happened, but can only assume it was a decent game, although don't really know too much about PMS Asterisk. PMS still is maybe a notable female-only team. Not sure how much truth that holds, but I don't think I'm going to be getting the truth anyway in this game. Either way, I'm Mikelorus, going to be joined by Grandisv for this next game. Hope you're still awake, dude.
Yeah, I definitely am, and it should be pretty interesting. Outside of their game against First Departure, PMS have been doing pretty well throughout the entire bracket, so it should be at least an entertaining game. We're going to start this draft off with Beastmaster Troll, Batrider, and Earthshaker taken out of the pool, leaving most notably Axe available for PMS Asterisk if they want to take it after First Departure. First pick up the Lion.
So, Lion, pretty safe way of opening after having banned out the Bat. You can afford to leave the Vengeful Spirit in, and it's not really going to make a huge difference, but the weird ban right now is that Beastmaster. He's been seeing a lot more play, and he's definitely a hero that teams are becoming more willing to pick, but I don't think teams are really willing to pick him up first. At least it's very rare that we see him picked up first, and if he's not picked up first, you don't necessarily have to ban him first. So, not convinced with this ban from Asterisk. I don't think First Departure have run the Beastmaster any more than anyone else. Like, maybe a couple times, but everyone's run it a couple times.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There have been a couple of or SEA teams that have been running the Beastmaster very liberally, but I don't think First Departure is one of them. As you said, I think they only run it as much as the other teams. I don't know. Vengeful Spirit and Shadow Fiend's going to be opening up for Asterisk, and a pretty solid opener it is too, offering them a large lump sum of damage. Nice mix of both physical and magic damage coming out from the Shadow Fiend himself, and also pretty easy access to the Roshan Pit with the Wave of Terror as well as the presence of the Dark Lord.
I like teams going for the strategy when they're on the Dire, especially. You get a ton of minus armor, and killing off Roshan is going to be a breeze. You just have to make sure that you get in there safe and sound, and it's not too late for First Departure to pick up someone with a couple of scouting methods. So, Clockwork or Zeus with the Thunder God's Wrath, Ancient Apparition, heroes along those lines to keep tabs on Roshan. But PMS, they already have a lot of extra physical damage, and though Juggernaut is very nice to have in general, when you're spinning to hopefully try to escape, it's not going to do jack when you have so much minus armor. We'll see how much PMS want to invest into that minus armor. We'll also see if First Departure are going to be picking up a sniper here, because it hasn't been touched just yet, and PMS have actually been the ones to ban out the Storm Spirit, so it seems like a pretty clean sniper pickup for FD.
Yeah, I think so too. Ban out the clock, pick up the sniper would be, or at least my favorite course of action. Again, we're going to see a lot of offlaner hate throughout the draft, and I think that would be completely reasonable for PMS, even though they already have the Shadow Fiend at their side. If they're not going to pick it up for themselves, I'd say that banning it out is probably the safest course of action.
Well, they are sitting on quite a bit of time. The bans for First Departure going to be targeting the offlane, but not just the offlane heroes that are very, very tanky. Maybe prioritizing the tankiness aspect more so than the initiation aspect, as Clockwork is still in the pool, and it works pretty well with Shadow Fiend, putting up barriers to protect the Shadow Fiend, very similar to how Clockwork works with a sniper. Just having more stuff in between your soft agility hero and the dangerous front line is always desirable. And First Departure are going to try to restrict PMS as much as they can, but you're probably going to find that offlaner, a tanky offlaner. If you really want to, you can grab a Centaur. Not the best, but you're good to go once you have it. Sniper is going to be banned out from PMS, which maybe they forced their hand a little bit. Storm Spirit ban now to protect the Shadow Fiend is perfectly justifiable, but what are they going to grab now? Because they know if they're up against Juggernaut, they're going to need a little bit more faster crowd control if they want to deal with him early on, or they're going to need a lot more physical burst damage.
Something like a Skarath Mage would be pretty nice for the secondary support, but it's actually going to be a Brewmaster. Pretty interesting too. They are already going up against the line, and just in and of himself has a lot of ways to stop Brewmaster from getting off the split. With an instant hex as well as an Earth Spike to follow it up, it's going to be pretty hard for Brewmaster to get off that primal split, and not to mention the mana drain is also pretty annoying with both the clap and the ultimate, Brewmaster can be pretty mana strapped, especially early on, as he'll want to be rushing into that Blink Dagger. It's not going to be the most reliable game, but even so, Brewmaster's a hero that a lot of teams have forgotten about. The mid-game team-fighting presence is very strong.
Occasionally he's picked up and thrown towards the safe lane just to get that team fighting presence. Not the best versus Juggernaut, but versus the softer support heroes, you can very easily bring them down, especially if with your Brewlings you have a lot of minus armor. Suddenly those things are hitting a lot harder, and you can very easily tell the difference between a Brewmaster with minus armor on his team and a Brewmaster without. So this is going to force First Parcher to pick up some more responses perhaps. Lion is, as you said, a really nice starting counter versus the Brewmaster, but relying purely on the Lion is less than desirable when PMS also have a lot of burst. Lion is by no means guaranteed to cancel any sort of initiation from the Brewmaster, so maybe something like a Silencer from First Departure, or hell, anyone with a Silence. Scarith Mage you mentioned before for Asterisk, but it's looking pretty good for FD here as well. The Lion Scarith Mage combo is a lot of damage, but it's also that crucial silence, and a crucial silence that comes out very quickly.
Yeah, it does leave their supporting duo a little bit squishy, but as you've already talked about, it does make up for it with the damage. Ancient Seal plus Finger of Death is absurd, and having that ability to burst down Brewmaster before he gets off the split is also some really crucial utility to have. But maybe they don't even need something as fast coming out as the Skyrath Mage when it comes to their disables, as Lion already has that Hex, so just any sort of stunning or silencing support would fit pretty nicely for them. The Earthshaker's already been banned out, but there's still plenty available.
You can always go Sand King, Rubik. Like, Rubik actually has some pretty sweet skills to steal in this game, so First Parcher should be keeping their options open, and PMS, maybe they're going to be prioritizing similar support heroes, but I think PMS with just their strength of lanes right now, Shadow Fiend typically doesn't need that much help, assuming he is not touched by the enemy supports. Brewmaster also very self-sufficient. PMS could go for a jungler if they really want to, but for First Departure, it's going to be that Shadow Shaman, so they got double hexes. That's maybe a little bit overkill, as both these two supports, they're awfully cumbersome. If they do get off to a start, if they get a single disable on someone, they're not moving for a very long time.
Yeah, between the double Hex, the Earthspike, and the Shackles, I'm not sure you can get much more CC out of two supports. And a decent amount of damage. But PMS Asterisks are going to pick up the Visage. Although this is going to leave them pretty locked down light outside of the split. They just have the Magic Missile, but it is going to be a lot of damage coming out from PMS.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting pickup. We don't really see Visage all that often just by himself, and I think it is probably going to be by himself, although it's not too late for a Drow Ranger as the last pick for PMS. They are going to get a little bit more abuse out of their minus armor that they already have. Visage is one of the few support heroes that can really make use of that with those familiars. And First Parcher going to respond to that with a Puck. Now they're just loaded up on silence and CC effects, so this Brewmaster is going to have a tougher and tougher time, but this Visage combo with Eventual Spirit used to be all the rage, used to be first pick material, still does its job more or less. Not great versus the Juggernaut, but you look at the rest of First Departure's heroes, they're paper. If they get hit with the Magic Missile, that Soul Assumption is going to bring them down to at least half HP.
The Puck at the very least is pretty elusive, but the Shadow Shaman and Lion are going to be very easily dropped down, although it might leave PMS a little bit locked down light. If they go for something along the lines of a Lycanthrope, that could be a pretty solid pickup for them. Just offering that extra damage to the birds is pretty absurd. But yeah, right at the moment, I quite like First Departure's lineup just because it is so control heavy, and they're not sacrificing damage to get to that. With the Lion, Juggernaut, and the Shadow Shaman, and heck, even the Puck, they're all going to bring some amount of damage and control in a nice mix, and I think they should be able to get away with it.
Got Queen of Pain, Tidehunter as the final bans in this game. Maybe First Parcher can make use of all his disables to land a couple of Sunstrikes, perhaps. Invoker, it's been a while since I've seen him. Maybe I'm just itching to see him. But for PMS, they still need their offlaner unless they want to throw Brewmaster towards the offlane. It's something they can do. It's something that I probably don't want to do. Again, if he is going to get disabled, he's just going to die. This offlane is going to be a mess, and okay, it is going to be that Drow Ranger. It was pretty clearly messaged to First Parcher that that was an option, but I guess they just didn't respect that option. Brewmaster offlane now, Shadow Fiend mid, Drow Ranger, Visage, Venge safe. It's not your super ideal Drow Ranger lineup, but it's pretty darn close.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's pretty scary to be going up against the raw amount of damage that First Departure have, but or rather control, but still the damage coming out from PMS is pretty insane. They have a nice amount of frontline coming out from the Brewmaster, at the very least whenever he has that split online, and a decent amount of initiation too. If they get off to a good start, PMS's lineup could very easily snowball this one to victory. But on the same token, First Departure now picking up the Leshrac are also angled for a pretty aggressive game. Once they get level 6 up for the Shadow Shaman and some points up into Edict from Lesh, their pushing power is also not something to be scoffed at.
And Awa is going to be grabbing the Leshrac. Wasn't he the mid lane in the last game? Obviously, with Leshrac and Puck, you juggle your players depending on who is comfortable, but is this a mid lane Leshrac, off lane Puck, tri lane with the Juggernaut? That's pretty darn interesting. I definitely was not considering the Leshrac because it's really not that great versus what PMS have. Like, the Split Earth is great, another stun after having a million ways of setting up, pretty much guaranteed to land every single time. It puts First Departure on that aggressive track, but versus a Drow Ranger, they have Puck to jump in, and that's pretty much it. Like, I was thinking more along the lines of a heavier damage dealer for mid, like Slark or Phantom Assassin, just to get on top of that Drow Ranger and Shadow Fiend both. But Leshrac, this is kind of weird. We saw First Departure run a weird strategy in the last game, and I gotta say, I appreciate them going for these strategies. It livens things up at the very least.
Yeah, I do like seeing Leshrac played in the mid lane. However, giving that extra bit of farm and levels is really nice. I think he kind of functions in a similar way to Midlina, but to a lesser extent. And honestly, I don't think there's any great reason to go for Leshrac over Lina this game. I don't think it was banned out, with the exception being Diabolic Edict. I think we are going to see some sort of Edict build. With so much setup for the Split Earth, I don't think the increased radius is going to be that important, so I would expect 144, but either way, we'll go ahead and introduce our teams. We're paused to start things off. It's going to be Iwa playing on the Leshrac. Freedom going to be taking the puck presumably towards offlane. Kai going to be farming on the Juggernaut, and the supports Lubby on the line, and Angie on the Shadow Shaman.
And for PMS, person currently not here, Claire Farron, going to be playing the Shadow Fiend. We got ex-Shadower on the Brewmaster with NJ on the Drow Ranger. Pyramid Head helmet, is that actually a thing? That's freaking ridiculous, man. I don't even know. Dazibi is going to be on the Visage. Dajibi? I don't know. And Dian is going to be on the Vengeful Spirit. Again, PMS typically, or has been known to be a female team. Not too sure how many girls there are on their team, but this is actually pretty interesting to see. I haven't seen PMS play ever in any of their esports.
No, not to my knowledge. Maybe I've seen them once or twice, but not in recent memory, at the very least. Well then, it should be a pretty interesting game. Looks like we're good to go, or at least Claire Farron has notified us that we're good to go for their side. Hopefully, First Departure will reciprocate that.
Alright, so Leshrac versus Lina, I think we should probably touch on, or I want to touch on that a little bit more. I agree with you in that they kind of behave very similarly, Edict being the main difference. It just seems like Leshrac is just so much clunkier than Lina. Like, he needs, like, better cast animation if it's really going to be comparable, and I think that's really where Lina has a very significant edge. Even though she doesn't have that Edict to destroy towers necessarily, she can actually move pretty decently because she gets that additional movement speed, and of course going for Eul Scepter as well. So yeah, I really would have liked to see Lina more for First Departure as far as their chances of winning this game, but as far as flavor, I love the Leshrac too.
Yeah, definitely. So as far as raw mobility is concerned, with just items without adding into the Fiery Soul, Leshrac is a pretty fast hero, but he's also paper thin when it comes to PMS's damage. 5-Man Smoke coming out from First Departure isn't going to net them anything, as PMS had a very similar idea. It looks like it's just going to be ships passing in the night, as either team are going to be able to get the ward vision that they'd love to. Magic Bush going to be warded out by PMS, excuse me, as First Departure just gone for a pretty standard observer to spot out that top rune spot.
They are setting a pretty significant trap, though, FD. I don't know how long they're actually going to want to commit to this. It looks like they're going to put an offensive tri-lane up on the top lane. With the amount of disables that they have, it might work out, and pressuring the Drow Ranger is certainly worth their time, but I'm not really sure if this is going to be really the best strategy. They're going to fail with their trap, as no one from PMS is going to be in the area, but they are leaving a whole bunch of heroes up on this top lane. Drow Ranger, Vengeful Spirit, Visage. I would say is probably a stronger tri-lane than Jug, Lion, Shadow Shaman. Again, these two supports for First Departure are very, very clunky, and they need level 3-ish before they really start to get going.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest issue that First Departure are going to run with the entire game, in all honesty. But getting First Blood definitely would help. They're going to bump into the Visage as well as the Vengeful Spirit, but immediately split. Without Juggernaut, the damage just isn't there at level 1. Getting level 6 on both Shadow Shaman and Lion is very crucial, and it's very rare that we see them picked on the same team in particular. Earth Splitter and mid going to land on the SF, but he's going to turn around. He has a Magic Missile incoming, but the Vengeful Spirit's not going to end up throwing it. Looks like our Shadow Fiend is going to be forced to use the majority of his regen here, but with the Precision Aura, he's more than happy just to trade farm, and at a certain point, this Leshrac is going to be very easily harassed out of lane.
Yeah, but the Leshrac also has one in the Split Earth, which has so far landed. It's not really supposed to land when it's level 1, and is at the very least going for 1 point in that Lightning. If you get a little bit of extra mana regeneration as Leshrac, in fact, like a couple years ago, I even saw people suggesting 2 or 3 Sage's masks just so you could spam out that Lightning. It gets ridiculous, but up towards top lane, they're going to get the spin onto NJ. It's going to be Angie in potentially more trouble, but the spike through on 2 is going to give them first blood on the Drow Ranger. Angie dropping very low soul assumption, not quite lethal, however, he will die to the Venge, but Kai's going to draw a double in the meantime, and he should be able to survive Dian's onslaught. Mana not there for the Venge, Lubby still in the area with some CC, and a 2-for-1, not to mention the first blood. Juggernaut is going to get 640 gold after all is said and done, and well, that's probably not perfectly indicative of this power on the top lane for PMS, but that's also the power of First Departure. Juggernaut's spin bypasses everything on this top lane.
Yeah, if any one of these heroes from PMS get caught out slightly out of position, they can very easily be brought down. And First Departure have a very good team at punishing that. Even though PMS's tri-lane's pretty strong, when they get peeled away from each other like that, it really starts to get sketchy. And as far as heroes that you don't want to give a good start, Juggernaut's pretty high on that list. That's going to translate immediately into a pair of boots for him, and now 800 gold on top of that. He's going to be really happy because of it. Shadow Shaman's rotated his way mid with a smoke, looking for a wraparound onto Claire Fair, and it looks like they're going to find it opening and going to be able to catch him with the shackles, setting up perfectly for Edict and Split Earth damage. If they want to drop it, they will, with one more shock coming out from Angie. It's going to be very easily killed, drawn by First Departure.
Pretty standard pub dual lane power right there. It will get you killed most of the time as long as you land that first disable, as Leshrac's damage with Edict, even though it's only level 1 skill, is pretty insane. Not to mention the fact that Shadow Fiend is not exactly what I would call durable, so AWA going to get a pretty nice time to start things off over in the mid lane. And, well, it is going to get better for the Shadow Fiend as this lane progresses, mostly because he's going to get more damage output through both his own growth as well as the Drow Ranger's growth up on top lane as she gets more point in that aura. But Leshrac, if he keeps getting help, it doesn't really cost First Departure that much. Like, Shadow Shaman not being on the top lane, yeah, it kind of hurts their kill potential, but Shadow Shaman is definitely not as important as Lion up on this top lane. And if he's able to rotate in consistently on this Shadow Fiend, get 1, maybe 2 more kills, then the lane will be all Leshrac's, and then more Edict equals more pushing. Shadow Shaman will also help close in on this level 6 whenever he goes for that, so it's a pretty dangerous threat in this mid lane. You don't have to worry about 2 supports, just 1. That means it's harder to get a read on when this top lane becomes a vulnerable place to go for a kill for PMS.
Yeah, definitely so, and it also frees up a little bit more experience for Lubby to get onto the line, and any room that First Departure can make is room that they'll be very happy that they got. The Shadow Fiend, even though he's died once, is still CSing very nicely up against the Leshrac, so that 1 kill isn't going to be enough to shut him down outright. The lane we haven't looked at is bottom, and well, maybe we should be, is Shadow is getting dropped very low by the puck. He'll be able to survive and salve up after the fact, and is CSing better than his counterpart Freedom.
NJ, though, got caught, and where are his supports? Nowhere, freaking close. They were stacking or doing something in the jungle. They actually didn't stack, they were just pulling the single stack of easy creeps. Probably not worth your Drow Ranger dying. But now that the Lion and the Shadow Shaman both have boots first, it's going to be so much easier for First Departure to actually make those jumps in. Not to mention the fact that Juggernaut also has phase boots, so he's going to be getting in there every single time. This Drow Ranger has got to watch her positioning. Even like sitting at max range against the creep wave isn't really going to keep her safe. Over towards mid, Leshrac, oh man, had an invis rune. He's going to break it, however. And there is death right around the corner. If AWA sits on the south end of this lane, though, then he should be fine.
Yeah, I want to say so too, but the Venge is going to try to bridge the gap, opens up with the Magic Missile. SF's a little bit far incoming. They're not going to be able to connect with the raises, and that Soul Assumption was very lackluster. Ewa is going to be just fine, and that support rotation is going to free up a kill onto NJ. If they can find an angle onto it, in the end, it's just going to be a failed smoke rotation coming out from PMS, and pretty unfortunate for them too. That was a kill that they desperately needed.
Yeah, it's not too late for them to get those kills, as they do have the boots first on the Venge. However, Dazib doesn't have anything. In fact, literally nothing on this Visage. 0 net worth. Life is hard for this Visage. Actually, no, it still shows up. I mean, 450 gold. I guess that's all he has, but or all she has rather. It's still going pretty well for PMS in the bottom half of the map. Shadower is doing pretty darn well versus the puck. Typically in these matchups, Brewmaster holds his own, and it's very even, but he's actually leading the puck in quite a nice margin. 10 CS, not too terrible. And Claire, even though did get ganked that one time, has since recovered and then some. Being able to double raise and instantly kill a creep wave will typically do that for you. Not to mention, she might have some stacks to work in the jungle.
Yeah, it looks like they have one double stack from the large camp, and, well, that's about it. But still, it's better than nothing. NJ, however, is going to get hexed up. No follow-up disable is going to be dropped by the Shadow Shaman. Double damage runes on Kai, however, maybe if they dropped a Shackle, that could have worked out for them, as the Vengeful Spirit was nowhere close. I think that would have bought enough time for Kai to come in and wail under the draw. Shadow Fiend is going to be dropped very low as he tries to farm up this stack, and well, it looks like he's going to be just fine in doing so. Nothing's going to punish that. However, this top lane is a very dangerous dance for PMS to be partaking in. If this Shadow Shaman finds himself a way to bridge this gap and find a disable, things could go disastrously.
Well, they'll see that tree being eaten. I think that's why Dazib decided to back off, and they're just going to go for a push anyway. This healing ward is not very highly leveled, only level 1, but any bit of sustain that you can get where it's more or less free is definitely warranted. Freedom, not X-Freedom, gonna run straight into Dazib. There's a coil, instantly going to be met with a TP, but we already went over how many forms of CC First Departure have. That teleport out of the face of danger is never going to work. Freedom also going to run to NJ, who is luckily packing a salve, so she won't outright die right now. But man, this puck making a pretty slow rotation, yet a pretty effective one. Going to get the team a kill, and by doing so will also most likely secure the team a tier 1 tower. Of course, this means Shadower is down in the bottom lane versus nobody. But I think if the puck leaves right about now, he should be able to balance everything out.
In the meantime, Claire is going to find herself a pretty easy kill onto the Leshrac. He ate a double raise, and that's pretty much the end of Leshrac's life. With the bonus damage coming out from Dro already, the SF is hitting for upwards of 150 damage, which is really darn good, especially when you're only dealing with a base HP pool of less than 700 on the Leshrac. Even though this hero is level 7 and is sitting on an old talisman for that little bit of extra stats, Leshrac is just so squishy, and we're already seeing that. And well, SF is completely caught up inside this mid lane. I think that First Departure should probably try and do something about it.
And the build that Leshrac is going for right now is not really going to be a man fight build. It's a I'm going to chip you down in lane, try to not lose my tower from raise spam and my creep wave dying off type build. And that's fine and everything, but as long as Shadowfiend manages his bottle and is able to get that regeneration, even has a salve if needed, then he'll be just fine to withstand all that lightning. However, up towards top, Dan, well, he's going to be fine right now. Sentry War is going to be won by FD. They also are actually wandering around with the puck. Thought this was the Juggernaut, but no, Juggernaut has shifted all the way down to the bottom lane to get a little bit more farm. The killing potential up in this top lane definitely does drop without this Juggernaut, but they're still posing very aggressively despite that.
Yeah, which is pretty awkward, I want to say. If the Vengeful Spirit catches him out with Magic Missile, things could go terribly. Hex and Earth Spike in mid going to catch out the SF. They're even going to commit a Dream Coil for this, but is the damage there? Turning around, going to not be able to get off that raise because of the silence, and well, not enough time for Iwa to come in on the Leshrac, which is a little bit more lightning damage. They'll find that kill.
Man, a big kill for First Departure, not just because they kill off the Shadow Fiend, but they also force 3 heroes from PMS to leave top lane in an attempt to help. Of course, they didn't. But First Departure getting a wraparound with that Leshrac as well. Just the final nail in the coffin towards that SF. And, I mean, it does cost them a lot of time on 4 of their own heroes. But they waste a lot of time on 4 of the PMS heroes and get away with the kill. And not only that, but now Shadow Shaman, because he had that free time up on top lane, has level 6, and the pushing power of First Departure has just skyrocketed. It looks like with them moving the Shadow Shaman and Lion down towards the bottom lane, they want to take out this tier 1 bottom. And Shadower, I guess he can defend it if he wants to use a split, but the odds of him defending and killing someone here with a split is very, very low, and most likely he will just let this fall.
Yeah, and at the moment, the Brewmaster is so close to getting a Blink Dagger. If they fail a defense, that would be very terrible for X-Shadow. Juggernaut is going to disconnect from the game. Hopefully nothing too major is going on. But I think this tier 1 tower is more or less forfeit. For the rest of the lanes, PMS are giving some room up top for their Visages. They desperately want ZB to find level 6. Getting those familiars online, this game more than most is really important. With 3 points up in the Precision War and Marksmanship for the Draw Ranger, these birds are going to be hitting with plus 26, which really does a lot when you're dealing with Puck, Leshrac, Shadow Shaman, and Lion on the enemy team. Innately pretty soft heroes.
So I haven't really looked at Draw Ranger sets recently, but this one's pretty sick. I don't know how Marksmanship really is represented by this. I don't know what this is supposed to be, but NJ is really swagging out.
Yeah, I don't know. Some sort of Dragon's Eye. I don't know. It looks more like a Winter Wyvern spell than anything.
Yeah. The entire kit, really. Precision Aura looks like Winter Wyvern's anything.
Splinter Blast, yeah.
You could replace literally any of the Wyvern skills with this and it'll fit.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't understand. Whatever. It's still Draw Ranger, I think, unless it's Winter Wyvern in disguise. The bottom lane tower is going to drop without a hitch, not even using the power of this Edict. Leshrac still holding on to the mid lane, making sure that the Shadow Fiend doesn't get much headway, although the tower is slowly but surely dropping. If AWA sticks on this lane, he has a pretty high chance of getting this tower denied from the Shadow Fiend, who's just kind of shoving the wave and getting as much burst gold as he can, but not really caring for the equilibrium. The rest of the First Departure side, after having taken care of that bottom lane, they're going to try to get a wrap around the Shadow Fiend, and if not, I'm pretty sure they'll just go for a straight tower push with that Edict.
They're going to spot out the Shadow Fiend very shortly. He's going to walk in vision of the Radiant Observer Ward inside the mid lane, but he's tugging his tier 2 for the time being. Doesn't look like they're going to catch anybody out, but the tier 1 tower is going to fall very easily. With 4 points up in the Edict, the towers just melt.
That'll be a very easy push there from the Leshrac. Tier 2s, though, for First Departure, how defendable are they for PMS? Because I think, as nice as it is for First Departure to take all these tier 1s out, they are going to need to wait a little bit more until they get Master Points if they're going to get anything else. And NJ going to get jumped by Freedom, but a quick TP out, Freedom all alone, can't get that kill. And with the Blink Dagger on this Brewmaster, this might catch First Departure by surprise if they try to go for a straight up push without having first gotten a pick off.
Yeah, I would love to see PMS use this Brewmaster split aggressively, but yeah, they do have that at their disposal, and now they also have a medallion on the Visage. This is going to open up Roshan very quickly if they can find a favorable fight with that Brewmaster split. They're going to smoke up, and I really like this move. I think it's probably the right one if they can get a fight on their own terms, or if they can kill off Kai. It looks like they're going to angle for the Juggernaut pick.
If they don't necessarily get the Juggernaut pick, they could always smoke into Roshan. They have a medallion up on the Visage, and they have Draw Ranger, not with any lifesteal, so it won't be completely safe, but they definitely have enough damage to kill off Roshan in a hurry. They're going to run into Kai. He has a lot of movement speed, and if he dodges a magic missile here, he will be just fine. Although he's not really running towards any sort of protection, X-Shadower will not make the jump in with that Blink Dagger. TPs are coming in for First Departure. Looks like FD want to defend this. However, Kai gonna walk right back into the clap. Lots of damage for the Draw Ranger, but Freedom's there with a nice 4-man silence and the orb through as well. Shadower's ward trapped, and he's gonna drop. Dazibi also gonna die. Here comes Claire from the back end, but he'll fail to kill off the Puck. Now the Requiem gonna get canceled by a Hex, and everyone on PMS is going to die. First Departure, they get away with 0 casualties.
That was insane. That was a very good fight orchestrated by First Departure. I almost thought that would go very poorly for them, but the backup came to help out their Juggernaut just in the nick of time. I don't think they really could have timed that much better. This Observer coming out from the Dire spotted out the Jug coming in from the sideline as he was looking for the turnaround, and they thought that they could get that kill pretty easily, but they didn't have any vision of the entire rotation of First Departure coming in from the north, so yeah, I think it's impressive that they were able to get out there alive. Everybody was so low, but in the end, close doesn't really count for much in Dota.
A lot of credit going there towards Freedom. He got a 4-man silence with a 4-man orb. Didn't have coil up because he just used it on the Drow Ranger. It was very close to being up, I believe, but it, for whatever reason, was not dropped there. But just having that, those series of skills forced PMS to just run away, because when you're silenced like that, when you are close enough to get hit by a spell like that, your first instinct is to split up, either retreat or just reposition yourself. And while they're doing that, while they're trying to move around, well, the puck is laying into you, Juggernaut is omni-slashing through you, and AWA is throwing lightning every which way. That short amount of time where PMS got caught with that silence just meant that they had no damage output, and First Departure had that much time in order to deliver all their damage output, and it clearly shows. So off of that nice 5-for-0 trade, what are the end results? We got a Bloodstone on the Leshrac 14 minutes in. We have a Blink Dagger on the Shadow Shaman. Blink Hex now online for one of the 2 possible Blink Hexers for First Departure. That's an incredible amount of farm on these heroes, and this game is looking awfully bad for PMS.
Yeah, and really all it took was that one fight to tip the scales. First Departure, although their net worth lead is petering out a little bit after that really good engagement for them, they still have very scary items at their disposal. Leshrac now can survive for a decent amount on the front lines with this Bloodstone, and more importantly, just have the consistent mana to spam out his spells. The amount of damage a Leshrac can put out when he is on the front lines is pretty absurd, with the Lightning Storm doing 260 damage over 7 bounces, theoretically being able to hit every single one of PMS's heroes if they're clumped up enough. He's able to get that off so many times, and then also the Pulse Nova is going to be doing a lot of work. Roshan's going to be taken out by PMS, and this is a step in the right direction for their team. At the very least, they're still able to get some objective.
But the sad thing is that even with that Roshan gold and experience, the Drow Ranger is behind the enemy's Shadow Shaman. And that's just never supposed to be anything close to being a thing ever. Like, Drow Ranger's supposed to be at the top, but she has a little bit more than half of the Juggernaut's net worth. She has almost Power Treads completed. Like, she has enough. She has it completed, actually, if she just flies it out. But Power Treads, 16 minutes in, that's not exactly what you want to be doing as Drow Ranger. Precision Aura or not, that's just not enough damage output, not enough farm, as they are going to lose Dian very quickly over in mid, actually getting quite a bit more distance. The Omni Slash towards Claire Farron with the Lion incoming as well. Coil onto 2. Finger Death goes down to the low ground. That was a pretty awkward exchange. I don't really know what the Venge was trying to do there with that swap, but either way, it's 2 kills for First Departure, and they have that level 4 Edict. They're going to go for a push. Brewmaster still with the split, but you need allies to actually do damage while that split is causing chaos.
And honestly, I think this is really one of the biggest issues with PMS's play this game, is that they just haven't been able to use that Primal Split to take any engagements, even though the Brewmaster got a pretty fast Blink Dagger. The difference is that even though the puck got his about the same time, he's been able to join fights. 1-0 and 7 on the puck is going to look a lot better than X-Shadowers 0-1 and 0. Brew's a hero that wants to be fighting every time he has that cooldown online, and well, if you're not, it's just a wasted opportunity.
Insult to injury as PMS, they try to go for this tower push with X-Shadower. It's in deny range, but for some reason First Departure aren't denying it. Well, I guess it's not insult injury if they don't actually make that deny, but still PMS can't even get that going for themselves just yet. For all intents and purposes, this Blink Dagger hasn't even been picked up yet for X-Shadower. Like, it doesn't matter when you grab it. It matters when you actually use it. He used it for 1 Blink Clap, and that's about it. So this Brewmaster's still working with not really a Blink Dagger, and that's just not good enough in this game. You need to be using that split as much as you possibly can, because that's what protects your Drow Ranger. That's what protects your Shadow Fiend, and if they're not protected, then, well, you're just going to lose the game. That's as simple as it gets. So this Brewmaster needs to get his split off, but PMS also need to find themselves in an opportunity where they could actually stand and fight 5 versus 5, because the previous couple of engagements haven't really been full-on fights. They've kind of just been massacres.
Yeah, AOA on the Leshrac does have an Ogre Club up, so I don't know, this Brewmaster split's probably going to end up being more or less useless as the game progresses, as First Departure are tanking up and probably going to get a BKB on the majority of their cores. Probably not Juggernaut, but he has the spin to somewhat evade the Brewmaster Brewlings, and he just does so much physical damage that they do need to be afraid of losing those split minions. Shadow Shaman is going to get picked off down towards bottom. The damage coming out from bench. And Dro is pretty significant and is going to get PMS on the board, but they're really on a long road to recovery this game. 13-3 is their kill score.
Yeah, the Shadow Shaman just sticking around for a little bit too long in a position where he really shouldn't have been. He didn't really get that much out of it anyway, so it's a nice clean pickup for PMS. Problem being, though, is that you can kill off the Shadow Shaman as much as you want right now. He's okay with dying because he already has his Blink Dagger, though he would love to grab Aghanim Scepter, Force Staff, Refresher Orb, all of those luxury items. He has his Initiation Tool. Lion also has his Initiation Tool, and this is maybe a little bit of weakness in First Archer's draft. Their Initiation isn't the best with just the Puck, but now that they have 2 Blink Hexers and a Puck, yeah, they can get right on top of the Drow Ranger and lock her down in an instant, and buy time for the Leshrac to just walk his way in. 13-3, and First Departure are actually going to slow this game down and look for a little bit more farm. Serpent Wards are up, and they have a ping out towards the bottom lane, but are they actually going to go for that?
NJ has found a decent amount of space on the Ranger. Now, after a really slow start, has managed to farm himself up a Yasha. And by no means is this good farm for a Ranger, but he is slowly getting back to that point. First Departure, I think they probably could have pressed the advantage a little bit harder, especially onto this tier 2 tower in bottom with the Serpent Wards as well as the Diabolic Edict, but regardless, they still have a lot of tools to take engagements. PMS are going to destroy a tier 1 tower up towards top, but I think that's acceptable losses for FD. If they just commit the Serpent Wards, this tier 2 tower should fall in turn.
Freedom is going to get a 3-man coil with a 3-man orb and silence through as well, but he was all alone, so I don't really know what the point of that was. I mean, they're definitely going to be pushing their bottom lane. That Serpent Ward's drop is going to guarantee that. I don't know if you can race the damage output of an uncontested Drow Ranger, though. Despite how powerful Edict is, Drow Ranger's aura is just a little bit too much, but they get the jump in on the Drow Ranger, so he tries to TP out. You'll have to going to cancel that. Lubby, though, going to get silenced for his troubles. Freedom also to the side is going to try to run away, but Lubby will die to this Drow Ranger as Shadow Fiend picks up the Puck. And First Departure, they're just trying to waste the time of PMS so that they could split push. I guess that's nice, but it failed because here comes the Brewmaster, gonna get the rock onto Awa with the healing ward still available. That rock did pretty much nothing, but Leshrac, he's gonna have to face up against a lot more than the Brew, as PMS do have 2 heroes coming in. He has the Edict active, Pulse Nova up as well, which does do damage even if you're in the air. He's gonna turn around with the Bloodstone, try to tank it up, but he gets full-on Requiem'd in the face. Omnislash, though, is gonna make it an even 1-for-1. Juggernaut, though, will die to the Death Requiem. And First Departure throwing away so many heroes in an attempt to race PMS. That was completely unnecessary, man. They could have just straight up defended or straight up rushed them with the entire team. That splitting their forces like that, that's how you lose a game of Dota.
Yeah, it definitely is. And Drow Ranger's damage, even though she is pretty underfarmed, is pretty insane, especially when you look at the familiars. That extra 52 damage onto level 1 familiars, granted, is really good at taking out the structures, and we just saw it. I don't know, First Departure was a little bit non-committal, and I think that they definitely need to be a little bit more decisive if they want to take this game in a comfortable fashion. What once was an almost 10k lead in net worth has now been pared down to 5,000, and experience is hardly in their favor at all, only 1,000 in that metric.
FD just being, I think, a little bit too cute. They think that they're ahead, and they were ahead. They probably still are ahead. In fact, they are, but not that ahead. Like, being cute is not how you win a game of Dota. It's flashy. If it works, you feel awesome. But if it fails, you look like a complete set of fools, and that's pretty much just what happened. So PMS getting another chance at this game as NJ picks up the Manta style. They have a point booster on Visage. BKB now up on the Shadow Fiend. Their items are coming up, and granted those items are coming up for First Departure as well. Manta style, Mask of Madness on the Juggernaut. Leshrac working on his BKB is very close to it. Most of the lead is now gone. Freedom's going to run into Claire, but at this point the Puck doesn't have any sort of chance at killing off any of these heroes by himself. Needs someone else, and if it's the Lion or Shadow Shaman, probably needs an additional hero on top of that.
Well, to be fair, there's probably not a big chance that PMS actually kill off the Puck too, since there is phase shift and Yules available. They just want their only stun. Meantime, down towards bottom, they're going to find a jump with Blink Clap, but NJ is going to be obliterated by Kai. He'll start right-clicking through the Brewmaster Brewlinks with a handful of Manta Illusions, but it's not going to be enough damage there. Brewmaster is going to throw a boulder the way of X-Freedom, or rather just Freedom. Freedom is still going to survive, however, disjoints that boulder and is going to be just fine to turn around and kill off the Brewmaster. Even though PMS found a little bit of an opportunity, it's not going to be near enough as, well, any advantage or momentum that they have gotten has just been thrown down the tubes as they use both the split and lose their Dro and Brewmaster.
And that's just because you have heroes in the wrong place at the wrong time, and by wrong place I mean a very wrong place. Why are 2 heroes down here on the PMS side without support? That's something that should just never be happening. So just as First Departure kind of threw away that previous engagement with awkward positioning, awkward decisions, PMS turn around and return the favor. So I guess everything is even now, and both teams can stop making these questionable plays. With the Brewmaster split being down, Serpent Wards being up, PMS now have to make a defense of their high ground. And this is going to be a very difficult defense because First Departure just have so much brute force in their pushing. They have an Omni Slash as well, but can they actually get their initiation off? Because it's really hard to make a committed jump up high ground with the likes of First Departure's lineup. They need the Puck there, but Puck is not there. He's in the Roche pit.
Yeah, they'll decide instead that this is a better opportunity for them. This Roche has been scouted out, however there's an Observer Ward on the high ground that was spotting out the Puck throughout the meantime, but whether they actually make a defense or not is another story. The Observer Ward down on the ground is going to mean that this Roshan is going to fall very quickly. If PMS want to do anything, they need to do something now, and, well, they're not. They're grouped up in a position that maybe they want to decide to smoke, but Roshan's going to fall before they even get there.
Right. Fortunately for PMS, even though they're not going to contest Roshan at all, they don't have to worry about a push coming for another Serpent Ward cycle. There's no chance that First Departure go with a high ground push without their full pushing force. So PMS get a little bit more time to do whatever they want. Unfortunately, what they want to do right now is just chill in their base. So the upside that they're getting from this little bit of space is not really going to be doing much of anything. And First Departure, they're claiming the enemy Ancients. They're pushing both mid and bottom. Freedom took out one Familiar. I don't know if he could take out this second one. It's possible with the Orb Vision, and yeah, that's a Familiar kill. No resummon available from Dazibi. That's a complete ultimate down, so maybe First Departure actually go for this without having that Serpent Ward drop.
Those familiar damage, or that familiar damage coming out from PMS is very scary, and yeah, I think that they'll be happy just knowing that they're at an advantage when it comes to raw numbers. Swap back. It's going to pull back the Shadow Shaman, but the damage isn't there immediately. The Omni Slash flying through is going to be enough to drop X-Shadow are very low. Vengeful Spirit for Shadow Shaman's the trade to start things off. Puck is also very low. The damage coming out from Dro is immense on the Iwa. She's just standing on the high ground and chunking arrows into the Lishrak. It looks like First Departure are going to be able to make a clean back out with the Blink Dagger on the Juggernaut. He's going to buy him some space, however, he gets stunned up by the Boulder Toss coming out from the Brewmaster. Now blinking. Puck gets a Silence and Orb through onto 3 heroes, but nobody's dying yet. The Aegis is going to be procced by the Juggernaut. In the end, the Lishrak with a Lightning is going to find himself a double kill and now a triple as he stuns out the Visage. Buyback from the Visage, however, I'm not sure that's going to do enough. With the Drunken Haze, they'll buy a little bit more space as Kai isn't going to be as threatening at all. But my goodness, that value Chain Lightning coming out from the Lishrak.
They might want to consider going for more. Lishrak still pretty darn healthy. BKB not up, however. And I think PMS have just defended, however, it did cost them quite a few buybacks. Awkward initiation there from Dan. Swapping in the Shadow Shaman, as nice as that is the hero that First Departure want to have swapped in because he didn't have Serpent Wards, he's not too useful. PMS maybe just got a little bit too committed into that fight as First Departure had that healing ward going, have some pretty good regeneration on this Lishrak from his Bloodstone, and have a lot of ways of chipping the enemies down, i.e. Lightning Storm. They were just waiting and baiting PMS out of their base until they passed this point where First Departure have full vision. They got a spike off, they got the coil off, they got the entire Puck combo off, and though it didn't immediately give them kills, it's set up so that the rest of the kills could actually happen. And now First Departure actually do have their Shadow Shaman wards to drop. They don't have an Aegis, but they still have a little bit of time where Shadow Ward does not have his ultimate. They might want to go for another push, try to get in there. If they get a pick off, it'll be that much easier.
And it looks like that might be on to Claire on the Shadow Fiend. Down towards bottom, spotted out by the Observer on the high ground. They know that this SF is more or less alone. They don't know exactly where PMS are. But if Claire sticks around too long, could be at the receiving end of a Blink Hex. And if one disable lands, should be the end of the SF's life. But for the time being, that's not going to be the case. First Departure instead are going to decide to just straight up push. Double Damage Rune is going to wear off on Kai, but he does have a lot of stats under his belt, and the Manta Style Illusions put some chip damage instead. After drawing the mid, they're going to drop Serpent Wards, take a tier 3 tower out very easily, and now start chunking away at these barracks. They're not focused on either one. Probably should have gone for the ranged barracks, as now they're going to be farmed up in a heartbeat, but regardless, still some high ground damage.
Yeah, I mean, they take a tower with the ward drop. It's not ideal by any stretch, but they don't really have a creep wave to do much else. So the fact that they got something out of that scenario is pretty nice for First Departure, whereas if they didn't do that, they most likely would be walking away with nothing. They also crucially get an Observer ward up on the high ground, which is not realized by PMS. They have a Sentry ward there. I think this Observer ward just saw that smoke. It might be just on the edge of range. There's some pings out, and it seems like First Departure with their positioning don't quite know that there's a smoke out, so that's a little bit unfortunate for them. But Freedom over towards mid might be the one to get jumped. I believe that smoke was revealed because the Shadow Fiend decided to raise in lane while still under that guys. They're gonna go all the way up towards top, and PMS, if they take a one team fight right now, and that's definitely very possible, they could be looking at Raxes for themselves because Dry Ranger does so much freaking damage.
Yes, she does, and exactly how much? It's plus 58 for the entire team, even though she hasn't built into that much plus agility. Just the Manta Style, a handful of Wraith Bands, one tied up in the Aquila. But then again, PMS going to keep on pushing, even without having the smoke at the ready, and even without finding initiation. Pucks coming in from the sidelines, potentially, as Freedom's looking for an angle. No angle is going to be found, however, as PMS probably just going to back off.
Well, they'll throw the orb, get a little bit more vision. Freedom is actually going to have to back off as they jump in towards Angie. Silence is there, but Freedom going to get a coil, but it's not going to do that much as they blow up the puck and the line immediately. AWOL and Omni slashing through. They're not doing anything, though, as the BKBs all go up. 4 are dead on the First Departure side. Now Kai has to run away. Claire's going to give chase, but they can't do that. They kill off the Visage. That was just terrible initiation from First Departure. They walk right into a gust from the Dry Ranger. Their puck drops a coil with no follow-up. And the Brewmaster doesn't even use Split. This might be Raxes for PMS.
Yeah, that's a very, very awkward fight for First Departure. I don't think there's any other way to put it. It starts out in a sketchy manner. They aren't clean at all, and that's very difficult when you're running with 5 Blink Daggers, as everybody does have one. Your positioning should be better than that. In all honesty, this is going to be Rax for PMS. Surprisingly, they're the first ones to strike. Although Ranged Barracks might end up falling down in bottom, it's going to be dropped down to about 500 HP. PMS have found themselves with a much greater advantage than they probably should have. The BKB is coming out huge. Chasing forward, the Juggernaut and Puck are going to try to catch somebody on their retreat, and maybe they can find Dion. With a blink forward from Kai is going to actually jump into the spin. The damage isn't immediately enough to kill off this hero, but eventually it should be. There's no TP there, and you can't even get off the force staff. Vengeful Spirit is going to be cleaved down.
It's still Raxes for just that Vengeful Spirit, though. Those BKBs were huge in that last fight, and granted, eventually they'll be dropping in effectiveness. The disables from First Departure, because of those BKBs, just did not come out. You could have Blink Hex, Blink Voodoo. No, it's just called Hex on both heroes. It was called Voodoo, I think, at one point from Shadow Shaman, but you could have that all day. But if you don't actually have disables for the Shadow Shaman, for the Brewmaster, then those skills are just going to sit by and be irrelevant. Killing off the Visage, not worth it. Dazibi might be jumped in the mid lane. Freedom, Lubby, Finger of Death immediately committed. And it seems like that Gravekeeper's Cloak didn't really do that much. I think they maybe might have burned through it beforehand, but Visage now down for 40 seconds. First Departure have their wards. This game is far, far, far from over because First Departure can push just as fast as PMS with these wards as well as that Edict, but they actually have to first find their opening. Might be on bottom lane where range Raxes are already weak, and they do have a ping out for that.
Well then, things are still okay for First Departure, even though they have lost a lot of momentum. After, at one point, being at less net worth than the Shadow Shaman Drill Ranger, it's now at a very respectable 12,000. And does have that completed BKB. At 10 seconds, it's going to be pretty difficult to bring down NJ. Even though First Departure's Blink Hex initiation might be able to lock her down long enough before they get that Black King bar off inside the fights proper. NJ is going to be running around pretty much untouched, so we'll just have to see how this all pans out. PMS have gotten a lot more room than I thought they would, with First Departure, those first couple of fights just going so commandingly in their favor.
And we'll see if First Departure are able to grab another Aegis. It's not really going to be cooperating with them, though, because the respawn timer is so large. PMS going to get even more time to get more farm in this Drow Ranger, who, if she's not under focus, is going to be doing so much damage, not just directly from her, but also from these familiars, now level 2, soon to be Aghanimed from this Visage. So First Departure, they're just going to try to farm up the map. Leshrac is a hard carry. That's kind of where he's going in this game. Is fine, but also it's kind of mediocre up against the burst damage of Shadow Fiend and Drow Ranger physical. This Leshrac needs an armor item, and Ultimate Orb does not build into a substantial armor item.
No, I really think Shiva's Guard should have been the order of business for Lesh, although another Hex would be wonderful, or, yeah, probably another Hex is the order of business for Ewa. I'm just not feeling it. They have so much disable already. They just need this Leshrac to survive on the front line so he can get his damage off. Inside that last fight, whenever PMS are given that space, they still do a lot at their own pace. The game has slowed down, however, quite substantially, as neither side are in no real position to look for a major objective. It's going to be a long Roshan respawn timer, and honestly, I don't think this favors either side in any substantial matter. We're just going to wait out that timer.
Yeah, it's a neutral respawn time for the Roshan, but it will be coming up eventually. And we'll see who actually gets an edge in that regard. It should be PMS, because they have top lane naturally pushing in. Kai's going to do his best to shove that lane as much as he can, but the longer these teams stand off, first of all, PMS have the vision with the familiars as well as that wave of terror, so they could freely scout Roshan. They also just have to wait until top lane pushes in, and First Departure have to send someone to defend that. So PMS have an advantage in this area right now. First Departure might be able to take a team fight that completely bypasses it if they get right on top of the Drow Ranger, if they're the ones to make the initiation with the jump in Hex onto anyone. But if that doesn't happen, then PMS can slow roll this all day long. Once they have Aegis on the Drow Ranger, then who do you focus from First Departure? Do you try to kill off NJ twice? Do you just go for the Shadow Fiend? There are so many threats on PMS that it's going to be hard for them to actually get any kills.
Yeah, I think focusing on the Drow Ranger first is probably the easiest and best way to go about these engagements, but even without the precision ward damage, Shadow Fiend's still doing quite a lot by himself, even though he doesn't have any quote-unquote damage items. Just with the extra agility coming out from Scotty and the presence of the Dark Lord, he's doing a respectable amount by himself. Puck with an Invis Rune's going to scout things out, although I think they might know he's here. Blink Clap going to be committed by the Brewmaster. Do they have a gem on anybody?
Shadower has a gem. They were dewarding the Roshan area previously, and now Roshan is immediately going to respond. Familiar's going to start auto-attacking it. That doesn't happen when I play. I don't know what that's about. Maybe auto-attacks on a Visage? Either way, with the minus armor being a sick minus 14, this Roshan is going to be dropping very shortly, although First Departure are in perfect position to actually make this jump. They have to go now. Even if they go now, I think it might be too late. It will be. Cheese is on the deck. Freedom might grab it, but he gets gusted out. Yule Scepter going to save him for a little while. Also his phase shift, and they gumped him with the Omni Slash. Will be split with Mantis Illusions, though, and the swap out is going to keep everyone safe. Kai now awkwardly in the Roche Pit all alone. Has to spin to get the hell out. Serpent Ward's at the entrance, but everyone from PMS can just walk right out of that. With Puck being down, First Departure have no chance of fighting. Those wards are going to get cleaned up in an instant. PMS lose absolutely nothing. Cheese might have been claimed by the Puck. Who is Cheese?
Nobody. It was denied, I think, by the Shadow Fiend.
Okay, well, it was denied. They don't get the Aegis and the Cheese, but that's fine. Let's just say it was the second Roshan in the game. They still get a free pick off on the Puck, and they're able to push. They just wait a little bit of time for their BKBs to be up, but this is dangerous for First Departure.
Yeah, it really is. The scythe is up for the Leshrac, excuse me. So they are going to have the triple Blink Hex initiation, which is very, very scary. But it hasn't served them well in all of these engagements. Let's see how well PMS are going to be able to position themselves. We now have a major agility item coming out from the Drow Ranger, probably going to be a Butterfly, and even just the Eagle Song is going to be providing a lot of extra damage for the team, up to plus 70.
With the Vengeful Spirit Aura, what was it? It was plus 170 something with her green damage. NJ is hitting like a truck right now. They will just take the tier 2 tower and back off. Try to take out Kai. Those illusions will take out the range Raxes. That decision to fall back, not too sure how much I like that from PMS. They could definitely race just a Juggernaut pushing with their entire team, though they're going to play it a little bit safer, and I think that's fine for right now. First Departure get a set of range Raxes. That's almost completely irrelevant in this game, considering how PMS how fast they can push, but at the very least, First Departure don't lose any sort of high ground structures right now. They might, though, because though PMS retreated for now, they can go in again with this Aegis.
Puck has an Aghanim Scepter, so yet another item pickup for First Departure that might help them in the upcoming fight. And we also have the Basher for Juggernaut. Kai is still trucking, and even though he died in that one engagement, that's his only death. 8-1 in 8. Even though we haven't really seen the power of the hero that much in the last couple of minutes, the pace of game has really slowed down. In fact, we haven't seen a kill for the last 5.
Yeah, it's been quite a long time, so PMS, they're maybe going to be looking for that kill, although First Departure are more aggressively positioned on the PMS side of the map than I would really expect from them. A straight push into an enemy Aegis is a great way to instantly lose a game of Dota, but if First Departure find a pickoff, then the door is certainly open. With level 3 Omni Slash, it's a possibility. They just have to get their initiation off, and it will probably be on the Shadow Fiend, if anyone at all, but where's the Lion and Shadow Shaman? They're not really in prime position to make this jump. I don't really know why they're up on top lane like this. They're not accomplishing all that much. I guess PMS aren't accomplishing that much either, so it's kind of a wash there, but First Departure, there was nothing to get on that top lane, so why bother?
Still 2 minutes left on the Aegis of the Immortal for NJ. I'd like to see PMS go for this push now that they have enough money for a butterfly on their Dro, or at the very least close to it. I think that's probably what they've been waiting for.
Uh-oh, Freedom. He's going to run into a Gust. Do they have enough burst damage? They certainly don't because of that Yule Scepter with the phase shift. Puck should get out, maybe cancel TP on the way out as well, but now he's stuck in a corner with no more cooldowns. That's definitely not worth it. Here comes the Omni Slash, split between two. Who does it end up going towards? It's mostly towards NJ, but Shadower takes most of the damage after dropping the Jar Ranger very low. NJ with the BKB won't do that much and will die to one more swipe with the sword. And Shadower also stuck in a corner, will take a finger death to the dome, will die. Jar Ranger most likely die a second time as well, but here comes Claire with the mech and the Requiem doing quite a bit of damage to Kai. NJ stuck in the wards, however, is guaranteed to fall. Kai trying to fight his way out with the healing ward still alive. He will get quite a bit of health regeneration from that, and he should make his escape. The Shadow Shaman will also get out of there safe and sound. Off to the side, Awa is going to be running into Tien. Sheep not used just yet, trying for a free hand splitter, not going to work out, but still 2 heroes are down, 3 heroes in fact, as Visage gets left behind by the rest of the team. Now First Departure, they're on the lane where they can push the easiest, and they're going to go for that, trying to test to see if PMS have any buybacks, and only the Drow Ranger has one right now.
A really awkward exchange. To start that off, the Drow Ranger ends up popping the BKB for the first life, and at that point, I don't think there's really much that she can do if she dies at all. Once that Aegis came off, she was very easily brought down. First Departure also get a blink first hit bash onto the Visage to catch him out on the retreat, so this at the very least should be a melee barracks in a turn. Maybe they kill off the Shadow Fiend. Defensive swap from Dien is going to buy them a little bit more space. Angie's going to blink forward, gets a hex onto the Shadow Fiend, but ends up being the magic missile in return. Blinking for Miwa is going to be able to channel his ultimate, now pops the BKB as he's doing a truckload of damage to the SF and Vengeful Spirit. They're both going to end up falling down. Pipe activated onto the Brewmaster, now going to be able to get off the split, trying to turn for the Leshrac kill. It's going to be a denial coming out from Lesh, but First Departure have gotten what they came for, and since they don't lose anybody, as long as everybody makes it out on the retreating end, they should be fine. Juggernaut is going to be thrown up in the air, pushed back down to the ground by the Brewmaster. He is going to Manta dodge that boulder toss and make it out alive. The rest of the Brewlings are going to make it out home free, and it looks like that's going to be the cost of the exchange.
Rax's score now tied up. The base of First Departure not looking too hot as top lane and mid lane are almost in full breach, but First Departure actually get Rax's, and that's what's important right there. The damage that Leshrac was able to do was insane, mostly because no one on PMS was able to focus him down. Drow Ranger being dead limited the damage output of PMS by quite a large margin, and without that damage output, Awa's 11 armor, though not entirely impressive, was more than enough to keep him alive through most of that. And it was, of course, the Shadow Shaman to set up a lot of those kills as well. With the ability to blink in and disable the enemies, it was all gold there from First Departure. So Rax score tied up on opposite lanes, probably still going to be favoring PMS because of the top lane. You want top lane to push because Roshan is closer to the bottom lane. That'll be in favor of PMS for the Roshan fights, but still, it's a tied Rax score, and with a score of 28-16, you wouldn't really expect a game to come down to something like this, with First Departure still having an immense net worth and experience lead.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. PMS have been fighting very valiantly through the last couple of engagements. They're going to smoke up and look for a pickoff. This probably isn't going to net them anything. There's nobody in this top portion of the map at all. Everybody is elsewhere as they sit behind their Juggernaut. They're just going to farm up for a little bit longer, but maybe they can turn this into a push through the top lane and swing mid for a set of barracks there if they win a fight.
And if they retreat, they might get caught by First Departure. Smoke up as 5. All ultimates, all spells are up on the First Departure side. They even have a level 3 ultimate now on the Shadow Shaman, so those wards are hurting. They are potentially going to run to the Shadow Fiend. Does have a BKB, does have a hell of a lot of survivability with 25 armor, 2500 health, but the blink from the Juggernaut is incorrect, but I'll actually circle around for Claire. Omni Slash is available, and it will be immediately used with a Sheep Stick, with the Abyssal there, mid Omni Slash as well. That Shadow Fiend is down. Freedom's going to look for more, but he will very quickly drop very low. Dian, though, going to get sheeped before anything else. Coil onto 2 as well. That's 2 kills now, as they're looking to be a third. Dajibi is locked down, can't move anywhere. It's a triple for Kai. Can they get NJ on the retreat? No first hit bash, not in time. They have to deal with top lane, which is very aggressively pushing towards the Radiant side of the map, but with 3 down, PMS are almost for sure going to lose something from this.
And no buyback on the Shadow Fiend either. It's really an awkward spot to be caught out in. With First Departure able to find your SF completely alone, PMS just kind of getting caught with their pants down. The Juggernaut is doing a truckload of damage, and as soon as he caught in with that, Omni Slash was pretty much all over. The other heroes were more or less just collateral damage. Server Wars drop down in the high ground. Looks like mid lane is the lane that First Departure are going to want to take barracks in, and they probably can. With 50 seconds till SF is back up and running, I don't think there will be any significant defense mounted by PMS Asterisk.
Can they take both top and mid lanes? They don't have the Serpent Wards for that, but obviously, but they do have the Edict, and they also have 35 seconds where the Shadow Fiend is not going to be alive. And it looks like, I think they probably could have tried to go for it, but they're going to make the safer play, take the guaranteed Raxes, and that's pretty nice for them. Now 2-1 in favor of First Departure, and then go straight for Roshan. This one has a cheese, so let's call this the third Roshan, and with the damage that Kai is outputting, this Roshan is not really going to last all that long. Serpent Ward cooldown for another 75 seconds. Give me that First Departure aren't going to be super aggressively pushing the PMS side of the base, but with the Aegis and Cheese on the Juggernaut and Shadow Shaman respectively, they can look for a kill, for a push to end the game as soon as those Serpent Wards are back up.
Yeah, PMS are bottled up, and at this point, the Brewmaster, even though he's offering a nice amount of utility with the split, his damage is pretty much not there. It's all about the Dro and the Shadow Fiend inside these fights, and even the Familiars, to a lesser extent, aren't doing that much. Even with the Aghanim Scepter, they're just dying too quickly to the peripheral damage coming out from First Departure.
I like how the Familiars and Visage are so much more relevant than the Visage himself. Like, you could lose your Visage, you don't care. If you lose the Familiars, you're in some deep shit.
Yeah, you really are, and they give a lot of gold to 100 gold a pop. You probably would much rather die on the Visage than on the Familiars. With the extra precision aura damage, those things are going to be hitting like little machine gun, I don't know, maybe even more than that, little cannons. But yeah, that extra 76 is nothing to shake a stick at. First Departure are going to go for the straight push up top, as that's probably the only place that they can push. However, Radiant's Courier is going to end up getting sniped by birds, I want to say.
It only had a point booster. Yeah, the birds are definitely doing their best to slow down this push, but First Departure do have a creep wave incoming. That point booster would be almost completely irrelevant. Not a completed Aghanim Scepter, unfortunately for Angie. That would have been a relevant item, but point booster wouldn't have done it. They still potentially can go for this push. Aegis is slowly taken away, so First Departure are kind of on a clock, and this is the only creep wave they really have to work with. The incoming creep wave is kind of banged up, so this might be a little bit messy. Freedom's going to jump right in to blink straight out. First Departure, they can be patient though, because bottom lane and mid lane are very quickly pushing towards PMS's base, and if Shadow Fiend decides to go off and defend, then that's a green light for Angie to drop those wards.
Well, First Departure going to have to wait for the next creep wave. It has been mopped up by PMS's AoE damage, which is pretty significant. Every once in a while, we'll see an Illusory fly through and a wave of terror from either side, as both teams just want to get as much vision as possible. Well, Creep Wave going to be mopped up, and now First Departure are going to look for that high ground push. They're going to plunk their wards down, and now Kai is going to blink it into the back lines. He's going to get the Omni Slash off, bashing X Shadow once. However, with the Requiem unwound and the right click damage, they'll be able to bring down the Aegis. The Leshrac is going to hit the deck. Now, turning in, they're trying to focus down Kai. Kai does not have this Aegis of the Immortal, however, he's going to be able to kill off the Venge. The Draw Ranger is still doing quite a bit over in the sidelines. Now, Iwa is going to end up hitting the floor. The Tier 3 tower has fallen, but it doesn't seem to really matter. PMS still win the engagement. The only survivor is Lubby in mid.
NJ was under no pressure the entire time, was on the north end of that fight. Even though there were heroes kind of in the area, it was Shadow Shaman, and I believe it was Puck, although it might have been someone else. There were two heroes near NJ, but they just couldn't do anything because once the Dragon Ranger pops a BKB, Shadow Shaman is a completely useless hero at that point. So NJ got a perfect position off, was able to survive, was able to do a truckload of damage in the duration of that fight, and a random blink into Omni Slash, and that's not exactly ideal when you have double blink or triple blinkers with cheap sticks on your side. So PMS take the team fight. They do lose a tier 3 tower, however, and I don't think they could push anything fast enough to actually get anything off of this. They're going to try to go for mid, but I have my doubts as to whether or not this is actually going to work. And if it does work, First Departure buy back on Juggernaut, they probably hold from there. So if First Departure make that same exact play again, maybe they take range racks. Maybe they could play it even slower because the mid lane was pushing in and the tier 4 took some pretty serious damage.
Yeah, it's still not looking great for PMS. They're not out of the woods yet. And, well, they're going to try for this push in mid. Juggernaut shouldn't be forced to use his buyback here. He's going to be respawning in about 10 seconds. And with the glyph, that'll buy just enough space for them to wait out that Juggernaut respawn. I don't think PMS are actually going to go for this high ground push. All they wanted was that buyback. Dual Scepter going to be dropped by the Puck, but that doesn't really amount to anything. PMS are going to fall back on their side of the map, or at least they probably should. If it's PMS to make any move, it's going to be off of the back of another high ground defense, and as you've already kind of touched on, it's going to be a very hard one at that.
Yeah, if they win a high ground defense, then they have to go through all these creep waves that are being pushed out, and the odds of them actually getting any objectives off of that, except for Roshan, pretty darn low. And Roshan's not going to be up for a hell of a long time, so First Departure can set up again for this top lane. This time, those Serpent Wards will be Aghanim'd, and Aghanim Serpent Wards is pretty ridiculous. Pretty much doubles their damage output, so yeah, I don't know how that's balanced, but it is. Shadow Shaman, once he drops those, PMS, they might even want to focus the Serpent Wards more so than some of the other heroes. Maybe not Kai, maybe not Awa, but suddenly the Serpent Wards are more important to kill than the likes of Shadow Shaman, Lion, hell, even the Puck.
Yeah, to a certain extent, it definitely does get to there. Juggernaut, his last item, or close to his last item, is going to be Boots of Travel. He might end up replacing the Mask of Madness or the Blink Dagger at some point, but for all intents and purposes, he's completely capped out. He does have buyback at the ready and the ability to join a fight, so even if things are looking south for First Departure, if Juggernaut feels that he can turn things around by coming in the second time, he does have that available. Inside the Radiant Woods, they're going to get swapped back onto the Puck. Can they lock him down? They can! Canceling the Blink Dagger. He wasn't able to get out of there, and the burst damage is still pretty ridiculous.
He had a Yule Scepter, but decided to try to orb and get his way out of there. Obviously did not work out for him. 1 minute down on the Puck, and PMS prevent this push again from coming from First Departure. Every single time they delay this push, it opens up the door later on for PMS to take for Roshan, and it also gets their Drow Ranger closer to being 6-slotted. She has a Mask of Madness, which she may eventually sell as well, though it was a relatively recent pickup. It was a desperation defense item to defend their high ground up on top, and will eventually be sold, I'm sure. Daedalus is incoming for NJ. Of course, saving for buyback is a necessity at this point in the game, but this Drow Ranger is close to being 6-slotted. Shadow Fiend's very close to there as well. Has Power Treads to sell. I don't think you replace the mech just yet, although that is eventually going to be replaced by something else, a Butterfly or something like that from Claire, and suddenly there's 2 very substantial damage dealers on PMS, not to mention those familiars.
Really, the Juggernaut doesn't have any room for a Monkey King Bar inside his item build, and that's going to make it pretty hard for him to focus down these PMS heroes. With the Brewmaster Mischance especially, he has no great ways of stopping that if he's already used his Manta style, and he's instead going to go for a Butterfly of his own as he pitches his Mask of Madness. My goodness, I'm not sure why that was so hard to say.
Because English is hard, man. English is hard. But Butterfly on the Juggernaut, and similarly, like how the Juggernaut doesn't have room for MKB, PMS don't have room for MKBs either. Like, their Gyro Ranger already committed to the crit. I mean, it's not like a full commitment. They can just deviate away into a different Demon Edge item. But the Shadow Fiend, I guess, can get one maybe a little bit down the line, but it's not going to be coming anytime soon. PMS, though, going to go for a pretty aggro push. These Familiars going to destroy a tower in the matter of seconds. I don't even know if that was seconds. And then they'll just make a clean retreat. I guess they force everyone in First Departure back into their base. And every single time First Departure are not in their base, top lane is pushing towards the Radiant, therefore top lane is not being pushed towards the Dire, and Megas are still not being claimed by First Departure. So a nice little move by PMS, going completely unpunished. They're going to try to swing towards the Roshan pit, and it's going to be a short respawn, but not as short as they really wanted to. They want 0-second respawn right now.
Yeah, 40 seconds is still as good as they can get. It's not terrible for either side, in all honesty. I think this is pretty neutral since First Departure have been able to leave their base, and maybe they can catch somebody out with this smoke. A Blink Abyssal is probably the end of some hero's life if they can actually catch them out. The smoke is not going to be dispelled, and that seems to be it. Right now, both teams, although they're very close, they'll find NJ in mid with the Blink Hex coming up from the Shadow Shaman, opening up with the Shackles and nice Ward Trap. However, Force Staff is going to buy a little bit more space, and the swap coming up from the Veg. She'll turn and kill off the Juggernaut, and now kill off the Lesh. The damage coming up from First Departure just isn't there anymore. They'll bring down the Shadow Shaman. The puck is able to evade, but not for much longer as NJ finds himself a double kill. And First Departure, things are really falling off the rails for them. Can they keep this up much longer?
Well, they have buybacks and everything like that, and it's possible for them to defend, but really everything that PMS did in that last team fight was without their ultimates. Yeah, Requiem was used, there was a resummon, there was a swap, but swap will be up very, very shortly from the Venge. NJ doesn't really have huge cooldowns. BKB is the most important thing for PMS to consider when they go for this secondary push, but there are no super wards to deal with, no coil to deal with on the First Departure side. Everyone of FD is going to buy back in attempts to defend. NJ going to get hexed up, but still has Dan right behind him to get swapped out if things get really bad. And PMS again are going to fall back. They have Roshan that they can take, however, Dan's going to get caught by Freedom. Sheepstick #1, Finger of Death as Kai looks for someone else. It's going to be Shadower. That Omnislash should be lethal. Abyssal right before the Brewmaster would have split to get out of there. And Kai's going to claim 2, immediately bought back from PMS. So this is pretty much an all-in play from both teams. If they get into a fight here, the winner of the fight is most likely going to win the game. But who can they actually catch off? NJ is running away from creeps right now. Fortunately for her, she does not have any Blink Daggers on FD to worry about. Top lane is also in full breach from First Departure. They have to fall back.
And unfortunate too for FD, this probably concedes Roshan for PMS and will make winning that next fight a lot easier for them. 4 buybacks spent by First Departure. Even though the Brewmaster and Venge are forced to buy it back for PMS, honestly I don't think that matters near as much as the Juggernaut being forced to spend that cooldown for the Radiant side. He's going to have his full 6-slotted item build for that next engagement. The Butterfly should be incoming shortly, but regardless, well, this is going to be a second life. It's going to be given to the Brewmaster, just making sure he's able to get off the split. I personally don't really agree with it, since the Brewmaster, even inside the split form, is very lackluster. But, I don't know, to each his own, and there's not really a slot that they can put that in. I would have preferred Cheese on the Brewmaster and Aegis for SF.
You probably could afford to give one to the Gyro Ranger. Having the Chrysalis is nice, but she's doing so much damage, she doesn't exactly need the crit to add on top of that. Like, we saw Leshrac die in like 3 or 4 hits to the Gyro Ranger, so if it takes 5 hits, who cares? It's not really going to make much of a difference considering how fast she attacks, and there's no reason to keep Shadower alive. He only has like self-defensive items. Pipe is nice, but at this point, Pipe is almost completely irrelevant. PMS, they're going to go in for a secondary push. Everything is up on both sides. But the damage output on PMS is going to put the pressure onto First Departure really darn quickly. Rax is taken, and that is going to be that. They could slide down to the bottom lane soon, but they have a tier 2 to work through, and there's no group wave support, so they're going to fall back for now as a group. Forced out from Dan, going to surf the Impale a little bit. But PMS, they should just be backing off and trying to go from the bottom lane in their base all the way down into the Radiant base, and then trying to end this game with this Aegis.
Yeah, it is going to be quite a long push, but at the moment, PMS are pretty much on even footing now. As either team still have their safe lane barracks to work with, but really it's them with the momentum. If Juggernaut dies another time, that could be the game, in all honesty. He doesn't have buyback for 4 minutes, and for Departure, it's going to take a lot in order to buy that timeout. We still have about that much of duration on the Aegis left. 3 minutes if PMS want to get value.
Well, PMS, they're pushing down the bottom lane. Similarly, however, First Departure, they're pushing up top. And we gotta remember that First Departure are holding 2 Raxes of their own. If they take these last sets of Raxes, it's not necessarily going to be game. If they pay a heavy price for it, it's not going to be too hard for PMS to come back and win from that position. But First Departure, they're going to go for maybe a sneaky play. No, they're just going to straight push it and force PMS back on the defense. It's not too late for First Departure to win this game, even though the past fights have been absolutely disastrous for them. Freedom is on TP cancellation duty. He will run into NJ, who doesn't even have a TP to cancel. Freedom going to do what he can, but what he can do is not that much. Coil might be dropped here. NJ would have to snap it if he's going to die. He's going to get the Gust back up onto Lubby. NJ, though, completely surrounded right now, is going to be fine as he just turns around. After that BKB wears out, here comes AWA, however, split earth onto NJ. He's going to die right now. Drive Ranger does have a buyback top lane, rather. Serpent Wards have been dropped. We're going to bring the racks down to half. But First Departure get a pretty nice pick, and they will force out a buyback, although they're also going to lose Angie. That's going to be a difficult push for them if they decide to keep going for it.
Yeah, without the Serpent Wards, without the Shadow Shaman available, I don't think it's going to happen. Honestly, PMS might even might be considering just buying back on the Drow Ranger and committing now, since they do have that second life for the Brewmaster. I think at this moment, they might be regretting not giving that Aegis to the Drow, because if they had Drow Ranger up and online, I think going down through bottom would be so much easier for them.
Or even not going towards bottom. This tier 2 tower, it's quite an annoyance for PMS. They have enough damage, just brute force the throne. It's definitely less than ideal. If you are going to win a game, you would want to do it through Raxes, because it's more methodical, it's generally pretty safe. But maybe they just go for the jugular, just go straight for the GG. They're doing so much damage. I don't know what the Drow damage counter is up to right now. It's at like 74 last time I checked, but it should still be around there, and everyone's hitting like a truck. They have enough damage to just go straight for it.
Pretty much. We have an Orchid, actually, picked up by the Visage. At this point, I'm going to say why not, but then again, maybe Scythe would be better, but still, more damage is not a bad thing for sure. PMS, they're going to have their Drow Ranger respawning in about 5 seconds or so. Looks like she wants to have Boots of Travel as her next item. Panic Bot Boots of Speed, I want to say, but that's going to be more or less irrelevant. Invis Rune going to be spotted out by the Lion, and maybe this sets something up, but I doubt it.
Yeah, she actually did buy the Travels previously, but I guess decided against it. You have to hold buyback, and the Travels would have made it so that NJ did not have that available to her. So if you bought the Travels, that would be a very easy way for PMS to throw this game away. But NJ is going to, of course, make the good decision and not decide to lose the game. Still, they have to worry about this top lane, however. Kai is applying steady stream of pressure there. Freedom is on the bottom lane with the Lion, looking for someone to snipe off right now. They have a lot of disable, but not that much damage between these two heroes. So can they actually pick off someone like NJ if NJ gets caught out of position? I don't know if they can.
Yeah, not without having their Juggernaut really is the big blow to their damage output. Kai is pretty much it, and especially not without the Lishrak. Their two highest damaging heroes are up towards the top lane. And although that's all fine and good, and although First Departure can keep somebody in place for a long time with the Blink Hex coming out from Lion, Puck, and Shadow Shaman, or actually Puck doesn't have a Hex, but regardless, yeah, a little bit damage light. But trouble picked up by the Puck, he can be at the fight at a moment's notice if he's needed. For the time being, it's First Departure to be the ones applying the pressure, even though PMS were the ones to previously get Roshan. Aegis has since expired on the Brewmaster, so that's not going to be in consideration.
Aegis replaced, though, with the Sheepstick. Definitely a more useful item for the PMS side than that Aegis on the Brew. So if he gets a Blink Sheepstick initiation, first of all, it's going to catch First Departure off guard, since they have not had to worry about that type of initiation from PMS thus far in this game. Second of all, Brewmaster, if you jump in Sheepstick 1, Haze another, then the damage output on First Departure plummets pretty much to 0. Shadower is going to potentially run into this Lishrak right now. Although Lishrak is now deep into the trees, will travel out of there. Lubby also in the trees, should not be in much danger. This top lane is not really under any more threat from the First Departure side, but bottom lane, NJ, he's tasked with defending it pretty much 24/7. And it just seems like both teams don't exactly know what they're playing towards. They're not making any substantial plays. Roshan is going to be the next objective.
Yeah, it seems that they're just waiting for somebody to make a mistake, and maybe that mistake happens right now. Line, ooh, Lubby. I think he's gotten spotted out by Familiars, and he will. Blinking Hex coming out from the Brewmaster as they blow him sky high. That's a gem on the deck as well. Pretty significant pick off for PMS, although it's probably not going to get them any map objectives. It's still in the step in the wrong direction for First Departure, and conversely, a step in the right direction for PMS.
All right, they just can't do anything, though. Both teams really can't. How is this stalemate going to be broken? There's a double damage rune on the South River. That might be relevant. If PMS find that one, they might just decide to go for a straight push, because they have shoved out the top lane quite a bit, so they're under no threat of facing up Megas just yet. But it doesn't seem like they're pushing quite fast enough. They don't really have that much clearing. A lot of single target damage, but that's about it.
Yeah, it probably is just going to be the next Roshan that they wait for, and we'll see when that's going to respawn in a mere matter of seconds. PMS are going to be hoping for a really fast respawn timers. They would love to not have to deal with the Lion in that engagement. Kai up towards top. Does have buyback on the Juggernaut, but if they're able to kill him off, I think that opens up Roche wide open for PMS, although it is a long respawn timer. In fact, close to maximum. Juggernaut's going to make his way back to base. Instead, they'll set their sights onto the Shrek with a blink in. Hex coming out for the Brewmaster. They'll blow him apart. Holy cannoli. NJ pretty much 3-shot him, I want to say.
Yeah, Drow Ranger does a lot of damage. That's 250 plus 343 with both Aura's, Vengeance, and Vlad's. That is just not fair at all. They're going to go towards the bottom lane instead of just trying to go for the GG. I think it's probably a better move if they go for the tier 4s, because that forces the buyback out from the Leshrac. Going for the tier 2, I mean, that's fine and everything like that, but now the Leshrac actually has a chance of not having to use buyback. Or maybe I'm just underestimating the damage output of PMS. This tier 2 tower is not going to stand much of a chance.
Yeah, even without creeps, I think they can take it, but then again, they aren't going to have any creeps to go for high ground, as Puck has cut off the creep wave. They're only going to be dealing with this one wave of them. Drow Ranger going to eat the tower destruction, and, well, Leshrac's going to buy back just the same. Boots will travel back from the Puck, and this is going to be a full-fledged defense. If First Departure are going to get this fight, however, is another story. If I'm PMS, I might consider just backing off and waiting for Roche, but they have other plans. Tier 3 tower is going to drop very, very low. Glyph is the only thing saving it. Blinkhack's going to land on the Shadow Fiend. Lubby going to follow up with the Earth Spike, but a Force Staff away is going to save his life. Blinkhack's and the Dream Coil over on the back lines. Cashes out a bunch with the Aghanim Scepter. They can't move. Omnislash flying through, getting a couple of good bashes. They'll focus down the Visage first. Now the Vengeful Spirit is also going to suffer similar fate. However, the Shadow Fiend's still up and fighting shape. The Ethereal Blade's going to buy the Leshrac a little bit more space. Where's the Drow Ranger throughout all of this? She's starting to right-click, but she's in a really awkward spot. The Brewmaster's buying a little bit more space, but now she's hexed up and fighting under the Serpent Wards the whole time. NJ's in no immediate fear of dying, and now Lubby's going to be forced to Ghost Scepter. So is Angie. With the birds up in the air, they won't be able to actually channel those shackles. Blinking by the Brewmaster is going to instantly Yule's up into the Earth Splitter coming out from the Leshrac. He's going to turn on the Pulse Nova, but Shadower is actually taking hardly any damage. Buyback from the Lion, and over in the sidelines with the Hex on the NJ. They'll be able to bring down the Drow, but Drow also has buyback if she wants to join this fray again. Kai is currently on no HP. It all dies to the death Requiem. And after that bloodbath, it's going to be a 3 for 4 plus a buyback on the Lion, but crucially, the Barracks survive.
Familiars going deep for something, but they're not going to find that much. As I said, Raxas do live, and PMS, this time the Drow Ranger was under a little bit more pressure, was surrounded by heroes, therefore lost her marksmanship bonus. Of course, not all the damage at this point comes out from that passive. It's still a large chunk of damage that was lost. Also, the Vengeful Spirit and Visage were on the front lines for a lot of that fight for PMS, not the Brewmaster. First Departure got a nice coil off, were able to engage pretty well, but they take a couple kills, force a couple buybacks from themselves, and this game pretty much is still in the same game state. We got a Refresher Orb now. Who actually is that for? That's for Angie. Backdoor Shadow Shaman is a thing. And if he drops both Serpent Wards with any creep at all in the Dire base, that could be Mega's First Departure.
Yeah, and even without creeps, he might be able to get range barracks. It's a scary amount of damage. 170 damage per ward, and you times that by 20. That's I don't know. I don't have words for that. It's absurd. Either way, up towards top, Leshrac might be in some amount of trouble with the Blink Hex coming out from the Brewmaster. Where's the follow-up damage, however? They're going to open up with it and now go towards Iwa. The Vengeful Spirit's going to come in from the sidelines, forcing out the BKB at the very least, but they also use a split in turn. They're going to swap him back. He's going to start running towards the right, now bringing in back up in the form of the Lion. And the, excuse me, Puck as well. Blinking for a silent Dreamcoil going to kid only onto Deceivy though, however. Leshrac is outside of his BKB form, now going to be stunned up by the Brewmaster. They're going to buy back in the Shadow Fiend, wanting to join this fight because the Shadow Shaman is doing the double wards inside the base. Melee barracks down, range barracks almost going to fall, and will. Even though the Shadow Shaman dies, that's hashtag worth. He ends up getting himself mega creeps.
Alright, so PMS, as much damage as they're doing, this game state is only existing because they're not up against Megas. Is it time for a desperation push? They know that the Shadow Shaman ultimate is down for good. They don't have a split on their Brewmaster, but by the time they get to the end base, it probably will be up. I think this is their only chance right now. I don't see them being able to defend up against wave after wave of Megas, plus the first departure heroes.
MKB picked up by the Dro and also by the Shadow Fiend. However, Blink Hex in mid. They'll find X-Shadower now blinking in with the Abyssal Blade. They should be able to bring down this Brew, and indeed will do so. He's going to be forced to buy back immediately. Swap back from Diana. He's going to be bursted down in a heartbeat. Buyback from the bench. Now chasing forward. BKB popped out by the Shadow Fiend. He's going to fend off a couple of Manta Illusions from the Juggernaut, but that's about it. PMS are currently fighting in a 4v4 situation. They're going to go for it down mid.
This is going to be really, really slow, however. These Megas are tanky as all hell, and bottom lane, Freedom is pushing that one out, has travels to rejoin the defense as well. This is PMS's only chance at winning this game. Kai also up on top. Unfortunately, stuck in some trees. Can't really lend that much pressure towards top lane when you're there, Kai. And he will just decide to TP back. Megas might be claimed by PMS, however, Familiar is going to take out the range racks. And can they just bum rush melee and make it even? But mid, the towers are dying. Tier 4's Freedom is doing quite a nice job over there. They're going to jump onto Claire over on the bottom lane. NJ, though, firing for Megas. It's going to be Megas for both sides. But Claire is already going to die right now, too. Kai does not have a buyback. Dan, going to do what he can versus the Lion and Jug, and NJ similarly so. But the Ancient is dying on the entire side of the map, and there's no pressure on the Radiance Ancient. I think First Departure have done it. They'll bring down the Drow Ranger one more time. She has a buyback to possibly defend. But what then? They're going to go for the Brewmaster. His last Brewling is going to die. That's going to be his death with no buyback. And now PMS, I think it's all over for them. They can't hold up against the Megas and 4 heroes from First Departure pushing in.
It's been a good fight, though. PMS, they've pleasantly surprised me with their play. And, well, now with the Blink Hex on the NJ, I think this is all over with Shadow Shaman with its wards on the deck. That is going to be the throne dying. A GG called out. But yeah, as I was saying, PMS Asterisk, they looked pretty good. Up against First Departure, I hadn't seen anything from their team, and it was a pretty impressive show. A good game, at the very least.
Alright guys, we're not done yet. There's still 2 more sets, one best of 1, one best of 3. Can't Say Whips versus First Departure is going to be coming up next, guys, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on HeflaTV 1 with the next game. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you in just a little bit.